Hey, welcome back to JG3 Reviews. My name is James and I do fountain pen, ink, and paper reviews and things related to all those things. Some of you who are subscribers may be going, do you though? Because I ain't seen you do anything lately. Well, I get it. My apologies for the delay because I did promise a video that we'll get to here in just a second, but quick explanation is I had a continuing education course that was awesome. That was the planned part of my trip. I had a wonderful work-related retreat, also part of the planned part of the trip. And I had some family things come up, health of other people kind of stuff. Also some things going on with a friend that I didn't plan but needed to attend to. And then I had a flat tire, missing wheel lug nut, disappearing wheel stud, and an adventure in customer service that showed the very best of how things can go. Shout out to the tire company and the mechanics that fixed my problem. And the other end of the spectrum. You know, customer service is not dead, but there are some places where it's on life support, and that old travel place that will not be named, yikes. Anyway, I told you in a community post, if you're subscribed, you can see those community posts on the channel, that I was going to share with you what pens I took to that continuing education course at Baylor, and it was platinum heavy. If you saw the photo, you know that it looked like this on this side of the case. Lots of platinum pens. And it was interesting to me what pens I ended up using the most, which were handiest, and there were no duds in this list, by the way, but there were certainly some that I enjoyed writing with during that time the most. So let's dive into that. And of course, not everything with the pens went as planned either, so I'll share that with you too. All right, first let's look at what's in the case on this side. This is what I took for notes, except for the 3776. That was actually in the hotel room most of the time in my laptop case, but it's in this one now. I took a Prefonte with fine Corinthian leather. Now, I don't know why, but this pen, it just reminds me of Ricardo Montalban every single time. Sorry. Anyway, the Prefonte, which I used quite a bit, the Platinum Curadas, which I thought would be one of the really handy pens. However, that's a story I'll tell a little bit later on. Then there was the Procyon, thanks again to whoever sent that to me, and the Plaisir, and my glasses are not on, the other Prefonte, and of course that 3776. This other side of the case, I had that with me, but I didn't actually use anything but the Zebra Delgard pencil while I was in that class. The rest just kind of hung out in the case back in the hotel room. So, what pens did I like the most in a class where I was taking tons and tons of handwritten notes? And yes, I wrote those in good old-fashioned cursive and really tiny on this graph paper, which, by the way, is the Clairefontaine notebook, and I love this paper. Sometimes a couple of these platinum pens have nibs that are a little bit paper finicky because they're really, really fine. They had that nice pencil-y feedback on paper they're happy with, but paper they're not happy with, really cheap paper, a couple of them will just kind of drag a little extra on the fibers, and I end up not liking them so much on that paper. But this Clairefontaine graph paper, they absolutely were happy. A couple of these pens, in fact, I enjoyed them more than ever because of the combination with this paper. So let's look at these. First, let's start with the Prefonte. This is a medium nib, and I love in the Preppy, Prefonte, and Plaisir class of platinum pens, I love that medium nib. Really smooth, really cheap paper tolerant, and just writes a really nice smooth line. So I knew that I was going to enjoy this pen, and I did. It's a light pen, so a long writing session such as I was in, really, really nice, comfortable pen to use. And I thought, because I love that medium nib so much, that this was going to be top of the list. However, a couple of other pens eventually bumped this one down. So next was the Curadas, and I do enjoy this pen. I probably have a more favorable impression of this pen than a lot of other reviewers out there. I just like the pen. It is quirky, but it's quirky and it's different. And I think if there is a platinum pen that would deserve a Doug DeMuro quirks and features kind of a review, this would actually be it. Anyway, I took this pen, and this is the pen that I actually ended up having trouble with, but it is not the fault of the pen. What happened was I was writing along, and I'm going to blame this in part, most like 99% of the fault is mine, but there was 1% that was actually the professor who was teaching the class. Too much good material and too many notes, and I burned through what I thought was a cartridge but was actually a converter in this pen. Now that was not going to be a problem if it had been one of these other pens, but it was a converter. I had forgotten that I had a converter in here instead of the cartridge, and this is not the easiest pen to change a cartridge. So if I want to change one in a Profante, such as in this green one, you just unscrew it that fast, take this out, pop the new one in, and you are done. It is really, really on the fly, super easy. It's what makes this a great EDC carry pen. This is a great everyday carry pen. However, it's not that simple. You have to unscrew this like everything else. And then I change the, no, I don't change the cartridge that way. Then I have to slide this in, slide that out, pull this out, make sure I don't lose that spring. And then there is this little guard, which without my glasses, I can't see the notch. But you would take off this metal protector of the cartridge, then change the cartridge, put the protector back on, then make sure that you have these notches lined up. I can't see the notch. Anyway, there it is. Make sure that's lined up and then put that through the little J gate and then replace this. Make sure you haven't depressed the knock while you had that off so that it's not trying to push that in, and then you're good to go. I don't think that's that bad if I'm sitting here at my desk or if I'm doing something at my own schedule. If it runs out at a coffee shop, big whoop-de-doo, I can change that. I don't care. It's not a big deal. However, in the middle of a lecture where I'm trying not to miss a beat, it's a problem. And there was a secondary problem to that. I didn't have my case. I only had that pen, which was in my pocket, and I had no backup. Yeah, I know, in the fountain pen world, that's flying fast and crazy, ain't it? Anyway, I had no backup. Funny thing is, most of the time on this trip, I did. I had the Gravitas pocket pen in my pocket, but I had taken all of my stuff out of my pockets and then put it back in the next morning and forgot to put the Gravitas back in. Didn't really think, probably, I'm guessing, looking back, maybe I thought I didn't need it, but I was wrong. So what do? I had to thumb text the rest of my notes into Google Keep for the rest of that lecture, which luckily was not all that long. And then we broke for lunch and I ran to the car, got a ballpoint pen. No, I don't mind ballpoints. It would have been fine, except this was not. You know, for example, back in the hotel, I had this Zebra Blend, which I really like. I had a Zebra Sarasa, which I really, really like, which is a gel ink pen. That would have been fine. And I had all of these pens anyway. I could have switched easily, but no. I had to go out to the family minivan and dig for a pen. And it was a sorrowful, deeply tragic tale. I had to use just a plain old freebie Bic pen. But it's okay. It worked. It was fine. Whatever. Still got to get that taste out of my mouth, but you know, blah, it's fine. I will recover. It's no, really. It's no, you don't, it's okay. I'll just a moment. Yeah, I'm fine. Anyway, so then I made sure that never happened again, and I had that Gravitas pocket pen with me at all times as backup. But, anywho, what was next on my list? This is actually tough. I'm down to 2 pens here. And what did I enjoy the most? These 2 pens I'm actually going to call a statistical tie. If I were actually tallying up points, it would be really close. This is the Plaisir, and it is in fine, and this is the Procyon, which is in medium. And different kinds of nibs, but they actually write fairly closely to each other, and they are both excellent pens. but they have different strengths and weaknesses in the context of taking class and a lot of notes. So let's go first with the Procyon. This is the one that I used the first couple of sessions of note writing, and I just really enjoy this pen. It is a great writer. It has really nice balance. It's a metal pen, but it has a nice plastic section. It's kind of short, that section. It's the same basically. It is, well, not basically, it's the same section with a different nib and feed as the 3776. They're actually interchangeable. And so good feel and nice balance and all of that. And I do write with that pen posted. Love the pen, and this pen on the Clairefontaine paper, happiest the pen has ever been. Just a perfect pairing. It also has that advantage of taking those same cartridges as the rest of these pens, so it's a quick switch. You can hear that little ball roll around in there, the little agitator BB in there. So that might drive a few people nuts, but it doesn't bother me, and you couldn't hear it in that setting. But really, really good, great writing pen. Loved it, comfortable, balanced, wonderful. I also found that there was a great advantage to this pen. If he happened to be talking at a time where I wasn't taking so many notes, or if I'm talking with my hands like now, then in order to keep that from drying out, you can put that cap back on really fast. This is a one-turn cap, so it doesn't dry out. Of course, all of these pens are great about not drying out. That's Platinum's thing, right? But it also doesn't take long to put the cap back on to prevent dry out, and that is fantastic. So one quick turn and you're back to writing. And I know some people go, does that really matter? In a case where you're on and off to keep that pen from drying out, it matters. And this pen, extremely easy. Okay, and you might say, but doesn't a snap cap like with the Plaisir trump that? We'll come back to that in just a second. So anyway, quick on off, great writer. When you don't want to put the cap back on, you can just sit that. You know, I kept the cap in my left hand and just slipped it back in there, and just a great note-taking pen. What are the advantages and disadvantages then of the Plaisir in comparison? Well, advantages, also nice, light, very well balanced pen. It's also really inexpensive as a fountain pen goes, and especially for one that is a metal pen with a really great lacquer and a great nib. I think this is one of the most underappreciated pens out there, and certainly within Platinum's lineup. It's just a great pen overall. Very well balanced, slips on and off very easily, and just writes well. If you have a Preppy, you are interchangeable here with those units. If you want to swap, let's say this is a fine and you wanted to use the medium from the Prefonte, swap it. They're totally hot changeable, no problem there whatsoever, and as reliable as all these other Platinum pens, and a pretty good looking pen. So lots of advantage. Great writing, great nib, very reliable, doesn't dry out, just like the other one. You just slip it in there, and then it is a snap cap pen. But that brings us to what is there a disadvantage? Yes, there's one. The disadvantage is that while this pen is a quick one-on, one-off screw-on cap, this snap cap is pretty stiff. I don't know if this is all Plaisirs or if it's just mine, but it's pretty stiff and kind of loud. I mean, not crazy loud or anything like that, but if people are trying to listen and it's a really quiet room, maybe that's the thing. What I found is that mine takes enough force that if you're trying to be quiet, it actually makes it hard. And if the person sitting next to you is doing this, they're going to drive you a little bit nutty, right? So that's a thing. So just not as easily open and closed as the Prefonte, which also a little loud, but this was the winner in that. So it's practically a dead heat. Aesthetics come down to what do you like. Balance and feel is going to come down to what do you like. Nib performance, it's going to come down to what do you like. I will say this, the medium in this Procyon is finer than the medium that comes in a Plaisir or a Prefonte. It's closer. It and the Curadas are actually quite close in the way that those two mediums write, but it's finer than this class of nib from Prefonte. So I would give this the edge. This pen just impressed me over and over again, and it was just an enjoyable writer in that setting. the Profante, an extremely close second. And again, all the advantages of this pen come with this one, except that's a nicer looking pen, right? But that really wasn't pertinent to what was going on with me in that class. But for some settings, that may matter to you, and some of you may prefer a metal over a plastic pen or whatever. But writing-wise, anything that applies here, or even to a Preppy, which I didn't have in my case just because I had no more room for any Preppies, except, I really should take that back, I did have my Preppy highlighter, which I really, really think is like the best highlighter value out there, especially if you have a highlighter ink that you want to refill it with. So there you go. The Procyon was my by a nose winner. I really enjoyed this pen more than ever, especially with that paper. The second was this Plaisir, which I do. I think this is an underappreciated pen. And then I enjoyed the time that I wrote with the Curadas, but there is that caveat. If it's going to be in a setting where you need to change that cartridge on the fly, then one of those other pens is going to be much handier than that one. And of course, you need to know whether or not that click is going to drive your neighbor nuts. I've had teachers in school before that banned click pens in their classrooms, so keep that in mind. Otherwise, Platinum, you're making awesome pens. I think you already know that, but really enjoyed a week of Platinum only almost writing. It all went really well. What are your favorite pens in that kind of a use case? What do you enjoy? Again, some of you already shared that in that community tab. And what do you like about Platinum pens? What is your favorite there? And among the Platinum cartridges that are available, what's your favorite ink? If you don't mind sharing that stuff, I'd really appreciate it. God bless you. Have a great week.